My Hero Academia, an anime that asks some deep questions about the meaning of heroism and what it means to truly go beyond, also serves as quite the commentary on modern society and who we consider to be the good guy versus the enemy. But it's not only the heroes or young heroes in training that identify these sides for us, but rather the villains. Welcome to this edition of My Hero Academia Philosophy, as we explore why its heroes and villains are by no stretch of the imagination typical, and why their multi-dimensional nature resonates with us so much. Much of this video is inspired by Wisecrack's Why Our Villains Are Different Now, and I'll leave a link to that in the description below, which you can check out. This video will focus on this topic in anime, specifically for the characters of My Hero Academia. Let's get started. Our stories are filled with colorful characters, but our villains have changed. No longer are they pure evil, a bad force corrupting a good world, but rather they are vigilante-esque, trying to tear down corrupt systems for the greater good of society. Where they fall short and remain villains is in their ideologies and often resorting to extreme and violent measures to achieve these ideals. But to understand why our villains, and even to some degree our heroes, have changed, we first need to examine the classic villain and hero archetypes. The background protagonist and antagonist in My Hero Academia, All Might and All for One, represent the heroes and villains of the past. All for One is the stereotypical mustache twirling villain, except he doesn't have a mustache to twirl. In fact, he barely even has a face. Regardless, All for One is the embodiment of evil. He is driven solely by his lust for power over all of Japan and perhaps the world, and his goals are achieved through the manipulation of people's fears and uncertainty. He, like other iconic villains, desires to bring the rule of chaos and corruption upon a world that is for the most part good. All Might, on the other hand, is the quintessential hero, embodying the same sense of righteousness, justice, and vibrato as iconic superheroes such as Superman, which is where his design comes from, the golden age of comics and superheroes, where larger-than-life figures stood against villainy, and they did so with a smile. While these background heroes and villains certainly work to support our cast of characters in My Hero Academia, there is a reason why they've only once cracked the top 4 of the fan popularity polls, despite having some of the most badass episodes centered around them. This is because we as an audience do not connect as well with them as we do with our heroes in training, or more complex villains. To put this into perspective, the Hero Killer Stain only had one arc, yet in that time, ranked 8th in the popularity polls. If you ask me, that's pretty good for an ugly villain who only has a few episodes, but a killer ideology. As noted, All Might and All for One stem from the heroes and villains from the golden age of comic books, which took place between the late 1930s to the early 1950s. This was a time of war and unrest, where the readers of America looked into the pages of graphic novels for heroes to save the day and vanquish the most evil of evildoers. However, World War II ended in 1945, and in addition to ushering in a new era of peace, the war's end also ushered out this golden age for comic books. Readers of comic books no longer needed superheroes who donned red, white, and blue and took a stand against Nazis or the Axis powers. The fear of war and global conflict subsided, and with it, so too did the desire to be shocked by one-dimensional villains who sought world domination and reassured of our safety by the squeaky clean flawless heroes who fought these invaders. In the world of My Hero Academia, Japan has all but forgotten about the past evil of the villain All for One. All Might even informs Deku that his reign is a history that's been left out of school textbooks. For the few that saw All for One fight All Might, it was a passing moment of terror, punctuated with All for One being locked up and All Might's retirement. Japan and the rest of the world now look towards heroes that aren't so perfect, and fears villains that are a lot more ideological than they are powerful. My Hero Academia's shift from All Might and All for One to imperfect heroes and socially conscious yet violent villains parallels that of graphic novels. This journey takes us straight from the golden age of comics, jumping right over the silver age and into the bronze age of comics. The Bronze Age of comics from 1970 to the mid-80s was defined by comic book heroes not only fighting villains, but also tackling social issues, and experimented successfully with darker themes in writing. For example, the murder of Spider-Man's longtime girlfriend Gwen Stacy at the hands of the Green Goblin in 1973's Amazing Spider-Man is considered by comics scholar Arnold T. Bloomberg to be the definitive Bronze Age event, as it exemplifies the period's trend towards darker territory and willingness to subvert conventions such as the assumed survival of long-established, untouchable characters. Or how about this cover from a 1971 issue of Green Lantern Green Arrow, which shows a character on the hero side literally getting caught red-handed doing drugs. This subversion of traditional writing caused our view of heroes to be fallible and human, and as such, more relatable to its readers. While it's only the villains that experiment with drugs in My Hero Academia, the series has students with real problems who aren't perfect and are more endearing to us because of their flaws. Todoroki has family and domestic violence issues, Uraraka has financial struggle, Aoyama has problems fitting in, and Yaoyorozu has big, huge, massive confidence issues and problems with self-doubt. When's the last time Superman wasn't confident when doing his heroic duty? Certainly not in the golden age of comics, but now, My Hero Academia, in the spirit of Bronze Age comics, has characters with flaws that develop into heroes right before the reader's eyes. This shift towards the fallibility of heroes as humans also helps shape the villains of today. Not only did readers feel connected to them through sympathy for the human condition, as anyone with a heart feels bad for someone down on their luck, but their ideologies resonated with our increasing awareness of societal issues and continuing distrust of corrupt systems. Villains like Shigaraki aren't after primitive notions of power like All for One, but rather are trying to tear down the system of hero society that often rewards the strong and beautiful while casting out the weak and deformed. The hero killer Stain was such a relatable villain because what he said in his ideology was correct. Fake heroes were being praised and rewarded for flashiness instead of for humbly doing their heroic duty and serving society. His only problem was implementing these ideas by killing heroes who are, at the end of the day, only human like you and me. Others, like Chisaki, believe the root of society's problems and inequality lie in disenfranchisement stemming from people having superpowers. They seek to even the playing field by narrowing the gap or eliminating quirks altogether, even if this means abusing children and using drugs. The Green Lantern Green Arrow series mentioned earlier dealt not only with drugs, but other societal ills like racism, poverty, and political corruption. The X-Men comics of this time were partially based on the premise that mutants were a metaphor for minorities and became a hugely successful franchise. X-Men not only blur our perceptions of heroes and villains by representing outcast groups as heroes, but it also introduced one of the most iconic anti-hero characters in Wolverine.
Excuse me, I'm Eric Lensher.
Charles Xavier.
Go fuck yourself.
As seen when fighting the hero killer Stain, heroes like Deku and his friends often go to the extremes when carrying out their duties, acting like anti-heroes from this Bronze Age of comics, and raising questions about what is going too far for the end result of heroism and good. By blurring the line between hero and villain, anti-hero and vigilante, comics as well as My Hero Academia speak to an audience that thirsts for more than just your cookie-cutter good versus evil story. They also reflect changing times in our society, where the enemy and who is right isn't always so obvious. As always, thanks for watching. If you like My Hero Academia content, consider enrolling at UA today by clicking the subscribe button down below. And while you're at it, hit the bell notification so that you're never late for one of Aizawa Sensei's lectures. Until next time, plus ultra.